CTBK gives executives and owners of mid-market businesses unparalleled confidence and clarity so you can focus on strategic objectives and organizational success. Their multidisciplinary advisors, accountants, and team members have a wealth of experience and are all available and responsive to each client to ensure the most effective advice, actions, and outcomes no matter the situation or complexity level. That experience base and one team approach combined with integrated and efficient way of operating enable them to be truly proactive partners doing the best thing for their client every time. Visit ctbk.com or call 716-630-2400 to learn how CTBK can work for you.
This is Joe Lazito, and here are 3 real-life experiences I would rather experience again than tune into Tim Graham and Friends. Number 3, have double pneumonia and have 16 ounces of fluid drained from my lung. Number 2, drop a 25-pound weight on my foot and break 3 toes. And the number 1 miserable experience I'd rather go through again than tune into Tim Graham and Friends, getting stabbed 7 times on an Uptown 3 subway train in New York City. What are you people thinking?
Welcome to Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants. I'm Tim Graham of The Athletic, here with Jonah Bronstein of Bronstein Sports Plus. And we have a lot to get to. Bills and Sabres. Well, maybe Sabres business more than Sabres on the ice. But, of course, Bills training camp in full swing out at St. John Fisher University. Between the two of us, we have attended every practice, although I think it's been well documented that I am not a practice play tracker. I'm not documenting attempts and completions for various yards and who's with what unit. And, well, let's face it, it's been difficult to make heads or tails of why people are with different units because of all the injuries involved, and whether it's by merit or by necessity.
You are not dominating the coverage.
I am not dominating the coverage. I am there. I am there to talk to people. I'm not there to watch every snap or try to observe drills and evaluate pad level and who has good hips. And if so-and-so looks like they've gained weight or they're in good shape, that's not me. It's never been me. I'm out there talking to Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott when I have the opportunities, and Pete Goelli and special guests who may be at training camp looking for that type of information. And besides, what the hell do I know? And what the hell do any of us know when it comes to breaking down and evaluating athletic talent? We talk all the time about draft busts and free agent misses and the players who got away, and those people get paid to do it. So what the hell do we know when we're looking at
And even for those of us that
professional
know,
athletes running around?
there are some of the reporters out there that know what they're watching, that play
Yes.
college football, coach football, or cover the league long enough to understand what an NFL team is trying to accomplish at a training camp. One thing I don't know that I think it's lost in the fan consumption and the media ecosystem that feeds into that is that these aren't tryouts and these aren't, sporting events and pure competition. It's a part of practices that go back to spring OTAs and mini camps, and then 2 weeks of practices after training camp and preseason games, and evaluations made on old game film and meetings and just knowing who the players are and what they can do. So the stock rising reports and who's having a good day and the practice statistics and what it means for the 53-man depth chart and who's making the team or not making the team or moving up the depth chart based on 1 or 2 practice drills that you happen to see. That's a bit of a falsification that all these drills matter as much as it seems.
Right. This is a shaving off the iceberg. This is just a little bit. This is about as surface level as you can get, and not much information really, because we don't know what's going on in the meetings. We don't know what's going on in all of the practices. I mean, we see these practices here in training camp, but over the course of the entire off season, what's happened in the different workouts that weren't open to the media, what's happening on a faraway field. We can't see everything all at once. We don't even know what they're particularly working on, what plays they're installing. There are times when you see a mistake and it's actually a positive. Maybe the defense made a good play, but there's a tendency to want to root for the offense. I always get a kick out of training camp, the oohs and the ahs and the screaming. The celebrations when Josh Allen hits an undrafted rookie receiver on a deep ball, as he did yesterday at training camp, and the crowd goes nuts. Well, he just beat one of your starting defenders. So, it's there's a reconciliation that must take place when you're watching the ones go against the ones and the second stringers go against the second stringers. Let me give the receiver's name. Stephen Gosnell, number 89, had a nice day yesterday because, well, by necessity, so many guys are out. There were 11 players that missed practice on Monday. I'm not sure the final count on Tuesday, but some guys were held out because of heat-related conditions, or heat-related issues from Monday's practice to Tuesday. So you had heat-related, you had actual injuries, you have veteran rest mixed in. And of course, the big news coming out of Tuesday was during a non-contact drill, a pass rush drill at that, first-round draft pick Max Hairston goes down with a right knee injury. And we saw the video. John Scott from Channel 2 and also Carl Jones from Channel 4, both were on that drill. It was on the side field, so a lot of us didn't see this happen. Again, there's so much that happens at training camp that we don't even see, let alone to be able to evaluate and digest as some sort of definitive take on what's happening at this camp. So off on the side field, Max Hairston goes down, and based on the reactions, particularly from Christian Benford and Tre'Davious White, who immediately close ranks on him after he gets up on his feet after being worked on by athletic trainer Nate Bresky, prayer, Christian Benford hugging Max Hairston, who puts his forehead on Christian Benford's shoulder. It was a solemn looking moment. It looked as though this guy's season was done, and non-contact plus the reaction from guys who know, it looked scary. And then we find out through national reports, which I have since confirmed, that it is more like a week-to-week injury. It was not an ACL tear. It was an LCL sprain. And so the Bills seemed to dodge a bullet there. But those are the big news, the big news items that have come up so far at training camp. It has been a lot of injury talk, injury stuff. James Cook is there. The contract, even though he's not happy with it, he's there and reporting because he wants to be there for his teammates. Dalton Kincaid put a scare into folks when he missed practice on Monday with knee soreness, but then he was back on Tuesday. Jonah, I don't know what are some of the things that have popped up for you that have just been storylines or anything that's been notable that really moves the needle. I mean, what's Hard Knocks got to talk about? The Max Hairston injury was a bit of drama, but
different stories. And I think in terms of Hard Knocks, I think a lot of the good stories that we're going to see on Hard Knocks are maybe stories that Bills fans have already seen or know the details of, and it's being presented to a national audience. I mean, I've seen them filming stuff like Joe Andreessen and his parents, and there's different kind of Bills personality things that might be familiar tales to the Bills fans, but somewhat new to the HBO Hard Knocks audience. And the production quality will make maybe it interesting to relearn some of these things. But I mean, one of the big football storylines at camp was maybe the Bills' only starting position battle for that second cornerback job between Tre'Davious White, a veteran who not that long ago was maybe the best player on the defense or one of the biggest stars on the defense, and now he's back competing with the first-round draft pick Max Hairston, and also mentoring Maxwell Harrison while trying to win that starting job. It's good news for the Bills that Maxwell Harrison has avoided long-term injury, but it does seem like he's going to miss the remainder of training camp and a good portion of the preseason, and that probably, I was going to say hamstrings, and then I caught myself because it wasn't a hamstring injury, but lessens his chances of winning that starting job, at least for week 1, and gives Tre'Davious White a good opportunity to take that position and see if he can rediscover his level of play that he had previously with the Bills. Maybe that's better in the long run for Maxwell Harrison's development. Maybe he wasn't, quite ready for that starting position anyways, and this takes some of that pressure off of the Bills to get him out there too early and develop him. So we'll see how that plays out. The Bills are deep at cornerback, even though this is where they invested their first round draft pick. I don't think they were counting on Harrison coming in and being a day 1 starter. But Tre'Davious White has his injury history too, and whether he can hold up at that position as a starter for a full season is a question mark. And with Maxwell Harrison, I think we said this after I said something similar after he got hurt in minicamp. It's probably too early and unfair to label a player injury prone before they played an NFL game, before they played an NFL preseason game. But he had some injuries in college. He had a hamstring tweak at OTAs. He has this non-contact knee injury at training camp. The data is starting to push towards he's not a very big player. The data is starting to accumulate for a player that is oft injured, as the only in journalism phrase goes.
Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo of NFL Network reported that the LCL sprain will keep Hairston out. And I'm quoting the tweet, as few as 3 weeks. So 3 weeks is a long time. And if it's as few as, that means it's potentially longer. So that is a part of the report I have not gotten confirmed. So I did confirm, was able to confirm that it was an LCL sprain, that it wasn't the torn ACL that people feared it was. But as far as the timeline, I do not have that confirmed. But, obviously, Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo, super credible. And if they're putting it in and they're couching it as few as 3 weeks, that still is significant.
That would be all of the preseason, and then possibly he can come back and be healthy enough to return to practice and be active for week 1. But I wouldn't say ready to start, and maybe not even ready to play if he's missed the previous 3 weeks as a rookie player.
Well, yeah, and it's reminiscent of Cole Bishop in his rookie season last year when he suffered the injury early in training camp and was unable to compete with DeMar Hamlin for that safety job and was pretty much boxed out. And once you get close to the season and you get into the regular season, it's hard to win back a job unless there's injury to the starter, just based on, especially if you're a rookie, because of the reps involved and the time constraints and the ability to get out on the practice field and impress the coaches enough when you're trying to prepare for the next opponent. And this is the time when you have the best chance to really make an impression and win the job and carry that momentum into the season. Jonah, need to take a quick break here. No, go ahead. Well, I mean, we can finish the thought.
Cole Bishop, another player who was injured during the offseason program, held out of minicamp practices, didn't finish the most recent training camp practice. We don't know how serious that injury is. It's probably not very serious because we haven't heard much reporting on it. But another young player that's struggling to string together healthy weeks. Dalton Kincaid missed a practice with the same bothersome knee that affected him last year. There's a lot of narratives coming into the season about players moving past their injuries and breaking out. Some of them are still dealing with some of these injuries or proneness to injury.
Yeah, there have been no significant injuries yet. I mean, Max Hairston is the most, but it's dialed back because of the fear that it was a season ender. So, but the most significant aspect of the Bills' injury situation is that it's a long list already. And the heat, again, is playing a part in that. It's not strictly tissue issues or muscles or whatever. I mean, the heat, this string of 90-degree days out in Rochester has been brutal. And we're probably, looking at some guys who are ready to they were enjoying today, being an off day. Need to take a quick break to handle some athletic business here. I received the phone call that I need for a story. And so we're going to pause real quick for a commercial break that will be as long as the CTBK promo is. As far as you're concerned, if I'm gone 10 minutes, well, that's Jonah's problem. But you're only going to be gone through this promo. We'll be back right after this.
The financial needs of a business go beyond tax and attest services. That's why CTBK goes beyond accounting services and offers outsourced solutions through their affiliation with CFO Solutions Plus. These additional services allow clients to focus on their operational and long-term strategic goals. Trust CTBK's outsourced solutions to provide cost-effective, value-added financial services tailored to your company's needs. Call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400. Or go to ctbk.com to learn more about CTBK's outsourced solutions.
Hi, I'm a fucking nobody, and you're listening to Tim Graham and Friends.
Welcome back to Tim Graham and Friends, here with Jonah Bronstein. Jonah, you were out at the KeyBank Center today. Got the press release yesterday that there was a big announcement to come. Terry Pagula, Pete Gwelly, the Bills and Sabres COO and Executive Vice President, Chris Scanlon, the interim mayor of Buffalo, Mark Poloncarz, the Erie County executive. They were all there, and some executives from KeyBank. So you could probably guess that it was going to be about naming rights. And that's what it was. 10-year extension on naming rights for the arena. And I think that there might be a temptation to look at this as some sort of clue or reinforcement that the Sabres are staying and everything's going to be hunky-dory. But I don't necessarily see it that way. This is just naming rights. This isn't a new lease. This isn't a new building. This isn't anything that brings joy to the fans like Kevin Adams being fired or Lindy Ruff stepping aside. So I don't know. Was there any significant? I mean, everybody spoke with the exception. Well, Terry Pagula didn't take questions, which as expected. But you were down there, Jonah. I chose not to go just because I didn't think there was going to be much to say. And was that true? Did that bear out that there was not much to learn?
Well, yes and no. From the top end, it was a big event, and there was a lot of balloons and decorations and what do they call those, light signs and mascots. Sabretooth was there, Rax was there. KeyBank has a mascot. I don't know the mascot's name, but that character was there for the celebration. A lot of people, a lot of pomp and circumstances for what was essentially announced as a renewal of a deal that's already been in place. I do not think it's a bad thing. I think it's good. I think in the simple matters, I don't think fans like having to learn a new name of a sporting venue. And it's nice when there's long tenures of this. And I learned today, I didn't really know this, that this is the only major league sporting venue named for KeyBank. So Buffalo has the one and only KeyBank Center. And more brand awareness with that being in place for 10 years. I mean, there's always opt-outs with these things. New Era pulled out of their stadium naming deal with the Bills with years left on that contract. But there was a general vibe from Mark Poloncarz, from Pete Gwelly for the Sabres, and the prepared remarks by everybody that spoke, that this was a bit of a securing the Sabres' future, that you might have heard rumblings about the lease being up soon, and the county, as county executive Mark Poloncarz said at one point, wanted to be out of the arena business by October, and upgrades that need to be made and who might want to pay for them, and even deeper rumblings about the team being for sale. And as you said, that still could be the case, but there definitely seemed to be at least public posturing that there's nothing to worry about. And all these stakeholders are working together to ensure the Sabres future and the arena's future. And that future will include KeyBank as a prominent sponsor for another decade.
This is all window dressing. None of this matters to the future of the Sabres. The only thing that would matter is if KeyBank Center pulled out and they couldn't find another sponsor. I just don't understand how this buttresses or underscores the Sabres' stability here. I think any questions, any rumors that have been around regarding the Sabres still exist. The KeyBank Center signing a 10-year extension to its naming rights deal doesn't matter. I mean, there's out clauses. Anybody who wants to move the team, even if there is no out clause, can pay this off. A sale of the team, it doesn't hamper anything. The building of a new arena, whatever. I mean, again, I'm saying a lot of things that are just possibilities, or, I'm not saying that any of these things are going to happen. But there have been questions about Sabres ownership and whether Terry Pegula is selling the team for a long, long time. And we've been asking everybody, and we'd go to a news conference, and whether it was Russ Brandon being asked about it, or Ron Rakuya being asked about it, or John Roth being asked about it, or Pete Gwelly being asked about it. These questions they persist because there is a lot of scuttlebutt within the community. And a lot of it also comes from the fact that there are so many former Sabres and Bills executives who've been fired, who are still living in town and doing business. And, they talk, and people hear things, and people say things, and people who have credibility. Not necessarily, I don't think they're making it up, but there are little embers that seem to always be ablaze. There's a smoldering fire underneath the Sabres at all times regarding their future ownership, or doubts, questions about their ownership. And then there is a lot of fans who just want it to happen at this point. And Terry Pegula is no longer considered the white knight that talked about winning multiple Stanley Cups and building drilling another well if he needed the money. I mean, those days are long gone. And fans are just sick of the ownership. They're sick of Kevin Adams. They want change now. So I don't think that any of this puts to rest anxiety or frustrations, or even if you want to think about the fans who are just concerned that the team might move at some point. I think there's an interesting discussion to be had that kind of ties all this together. And there are fans who want Terry Pegula to sell the team. You see it on social media a lot. Anytime the Sabres post something on social media, I mean, the comments are amazing. I mean, that's their theater almost. But
Same
if
can be said for Mark Poloncarz.
Right, true. But if the Sabres were to be sold, then do they stay? And there's a belief, well, much like there was always a belief with the NFL, well, Roger Goodell would never let the Bills leave Buffalo. He's from Western New York, and, come on. Without a new stadium and all kinds of things, the Bills, I mean, there's all kinds of things that had to happen right for the Bills to stay in Buffalo, and a billionaire emerging out of relative obscurity to buy the Buffalo Sabres a few years early was the best thing to ever happen to the Bills' stability. But we see, the NHL is stubborn. They didn't want to leave Phoenix until they had to. They might try to go back to Atlanta for a third attempt. But anyways, to kind of, pull it all together here. I think what it comes down to, and I've heard this from a lot of people who I trust, is that as long as Terry Pegula is the owner of the Buffalo Sabres, the Sabres will remain here in Buffalo because he's not selling. He loves the Sabres. That's his baby. It still is. Results and not spending to the cap and the gutting of the scouting department and cost cutting and all that stuff, regardless of any of that, it's still his thing. The fact that he's at every Bills game, but not at every Sabres game. He still loves the Sabres. Where it gets interesting is that if something were to happen to where he, you know, things happen in terms of health and he can no longer run the team, or when he dies, is that from all accounts, his family has no interest in the Sabres. They love being a part of the NFL, but the Sabres, I mean, how often do we see the Pegula family anywhere near the Sabres? Yes, we used to see Matt Pegula on the stage when the Sabres had their first round draft pick, right? I don't know if he did it. Well, there's nothing to do this year because it was in the war room, but
Terry Pegula was at
and
the
Laura
draft and
Pegula
on
was in the
stage,
war
so.
room with the Sabres when they made their picks. But everything that I hear is that is when you might get your wish, Sabres fans, that Terry Pegula no longer owns the Sabres. But also, what happens then? That's the big mystery. But at
I'll
least it'll
say
be called the
this.
KeyBank Center for 10 more years.
I'll say this, and I'm saying it somewhat reluctantly because it could be an oversight on my part or trying to disprove a negative, but I did not notice Laura Pegula there today. And when she was there last year for Lindy Ruff's introduction, she was very noticeable. And I've noticed her presence at Bill's training camp and Bill's practices whenever she's been there. And if she was there today, she was in the background and not prominently seen by myself or the people I was with. Do you think that means anything?
No, I mean, this is again, as you can tell by my tone, and this was a wanking motion event. And it was done on a Bills off day. It was convenient. It was hey, don't forget about us. You know, you still got a hockey team here. It was probably more of a KeyBank Center event than it was a Sabres event. But you also want to have you want it to be special for the company that's sinking a ton of money into your hockey team. And hey, you know, the Sabres can't turn down any attention when it comes to business. That's why they put banners up. You know, they're what do they call them, Jonah? They have the banners up of their sponsors.
The thank you banners. I don't know
No, there's like a first ring or a ring of
yes,
whatever, and they have the
yeah.
banners hanging in the arena of all
Yeah.
the different big time sponsors. Those are the only banners that they've been able to hang for the last decade and a half. But anyways,
Well, they've
it
hung
was a
some.
KeyBank Center event. It was to pat KeyBank Center on the head and show them a good time and thank them for backing a loser.
You know, I don't know. This might be window dressing too, but you know, they have hung banners and they're going to hang another one for the Buffalo Bandits that have won 3 championships in a row. And Terry Pegula mentioned the Bandits, and Mark Poloncarz has mentioned the Bandits and congratulate them on their championships. And Dane Smith and Josh Byrne and Chase Frazier, I believe, were there. And it's smaller than hockey. You know, it doesn't draw the same revenues, but in this town, it has drawn bigger crowds in the last couple of years. And you know,
When was
that
the
was
last
part
time
of.
Terry Pegula was spotted at a Bandits game, including their championship?
I was told he was at the championship game, but he was not necessarily spotted by the media or the public. And this, to me, is one of the first public acknowledgments that I can recall with Terry Pegula and the Bandits. Maybe early on when they acquired the Sabres and the associated properties, but he is not out in front as a Bandits owner in the same way that he is as a Sabres, and certainly not the Bills. But today seemed a little bit more of a display of pride and taking some credit for owning the championship franchise, because I actually think the Pegula group should lean more into the Bandits' success when they're unpopular with Sabres fans and Buffalo fans, and kind of point to, because if you talk to Bandits people, I think John Gertler said it on this podcast, or it might have been Dave Buchanan. Why are the Bandits good? They will say the Pegulas. They put resources into that team that the other owners in the leagues do not. they won't be putting resources into the Rochester team anymore, but for Buffalo, they're considered excellent owners. And if I was handling PR for the Pagulas, I would emphasize that more and try to build some goodwill with the fan base. And the Bills also earn them some goodwill. And maybe you can drown out some of the Sabres complaints if you point to other successes that this ownership group has had.
Yeah.
Terry Pagula said something today that caught my interest. We'll see how this plays out, but he gave some numbers that they came across in an economic impact study. And he said that the average over recent years of attended arena events has been about 120, and that it was 140 this year, or scheduled to be 140 this year, and that it's growing, and they want to have 200, as many as 200 events at the arena.
It must be because of concerts, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're not going to have more hockey games. I mean, they are.
No, I don't mean the events. I mean the attendance the uptick in attendance.
Well, I don't know if there's an
concert related, right?
I shouldn't say there's an uptick in attendance. There's an update in programming and the number of events that are being held. But I think that's
okay.
kind of
sorry,
exciting.
I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah. The dates of the arenas being used.
Okay, understood.
Have been increasing, and they wanted to increase even more. And I think that's interesting and exciting to unpack that and figure out what that means. I mean, if there's 140 events this year and they want as close to 200, they probably won't get that high, but that's the goal. What are these other 50 events? What are these concerts, potential basketball games, or more NCAA, hockey, lacrosse, high school events? I don't know. Mark Poloncarz spoke about wanting to see more than just 10 football games a year at the new stadium. And he said that they are equipped there to have international soccer matches. They won't be able to do it for the World Cup, but maybe in the future. And, I perk up at hearing hearing about maybe more creative sporting events, even non-sporting events, but just more events at the arena and the football stadium. And, I think it's good for the Bills and the Sabres when these venues are viable, and it ensures their future here, and good for sports fans that there isn't much concern that the Bills or Sabres are moving, but there's more to it. I think with having these professional sports venues and being able to have more than just Bills and Sabres games, and it's encouraging if things are going in that direction.
Yeah, I just think that the news of today, the KeyBank Center naming rights and the 10-year extension there, whatever concerns or questions or rumors or issues you had about the Sabres and their ownership and their stability and whatever, whether it's conspiracy theory or not, this doesn't put an end to any of it, because it's just, and to frame it as any kind of stabilizer, I think, is fiction.
Yes, but then you're also saying that the team's not for sale, and as long as Terry Pagula is the owner, he's probably not going to sell them. So the conspiracy theories are.
It's not going to put an end to any of the talk around town of, like all these things that we hear. I mean, but I don't know. But you said that was kind of the sentiment, was this is about the future of the program or the organization or whatever. But
the rhetoric made it sound like they signed a 10-year lease, and there was or like when Bill,
that would be news,
signed a 30-year lease, and it was, when the county had made it so it was going to be really hard to get out of that lease. Now that did not happen. The lease is set to expire, and it's being rolled over and renewed on a year-to-year basis, and they have not even begun negotiating the next lease. But the vibe was that this naming rights deal serves as a de facto lease, and that there's nothing to worry about. There is no lease agreement in place, and that they're behind on needed updates, that'll all come, that this naming deal was the key piece of the puzzle.
Right. Jonah, you were out at UB football yesterday. Is there anything to say there before we wrap up?
I'm going back there tomorrow, I think, or at least one of their practices. And I like myself covering UB football, and that in this time of year, and that you go to a few practices and you start forming thoughts and opinions and observations and developing storylines on this team without feeling any need to report on every practice like a sporting event and give updates on who's taking what reps and things like that. There's less demand for that. Maybe if it was a bigger college football market, there's more of that coming out of the first practice, but you just watch it. You talk to a few players each day, you talk to the coach a few more times, and you see how it develops. But you'd be coming off an excellent first season under Pete Lembo. And usually those first seasons for a coach are reset, rebuilding years, establish the culture. And the second year is the year where they start to make strides, but they made strides in year one. So it'd be interesting to see how they can capitalize on that with a roster that I don't think is much more talented, but isn't less talented. They retained most of their players and weren't hit too hard in the transfer portal. They lost some good players to graduation, but transfer portal wise, the culture that Pete Lembo established in his first year got a lot of these players to stick around, and they're picked fourth in the MAC and kind of have every right to believe they are at least contenders for a MAC championship, if not favorites.
All right. When we come back with our next episode, we will not only have an episode of Hard Knocks under our belts, but we will have seen the first Bills depth chart of the preseason, because there is a game Saturday, August 9th. So early next week, the Bills will put out their weekly media release, and on it will be a depth chart that usually you can't read too much into, but a lot of years when the first one comes out, there's at least something in there, a little nugget of how the coaching staff is thinking regarding a particular battle, or but really not a lot of those types of storylines with this team this year.
Hey, Tim, do you know who is favored to win the MAC this year in football?
No. Wait, let me take a stab at it. Is it Toledo?
Yeah, say it with your chest.
Well, this is the Toledo Troopers of the National Women's Football League, a gift from friend of the show, Lindsay Darkangelo. And this is when she wrote her book about the Women's Football League. There was a tie-in with them. They went and they made the T-shirts. They resurrected all the teams from that league. And so this is from the Toledo Troopers of the National Women's Football League.
Also,
Not
did you
the
know
Toledo Rockets of the Mid-American Conference.
before we sign off, I should note it's 7 days until the Erie County Fair.
Oh, all hands on deck at Channel 4 and most
Almost
local
here.
TV stations around the country. But that's national holiday for you. That is bigger than Hanukkah.
Right. It's the 12 greatest days of summer, 12 best days of summer.
Jonah, thanks for this. See you out there at camp. If you see us out at camp, scream at us. Say hello. We always love talking to fans of the Bills. Obviously, this podcast doesn't have any fans, but thank you anyway for watching / listening to Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK CPAs and Business Consultants.